at the beginning you were talking about the replicating the human brain, etc. So to me, the study of artificial intelligence was not a technology endeavor at the beginning. It was a scientific and philosophical endeavor. And to me, the pursuit of knowledge is the real goal. And if you want to understand how knowledge originates and how the brain works, it's really knowing yourself. So going after the study of artificial intelligence is not going after money, glory, or even technological application at the beginning, but it's going after understanding humans. So as such, I think it's an endeavor that is really important, let alone the repercussion that you might have in, for instance, understanding diseases, right? So if you know how the brain works, maybe you can cure some of the diseases that plague many, many millions of people.
Immigrant Nation, welcome to the Immigrant Podcast, a tribe. Today we have the fascinating Massimiliano Versace, co-founder and CEO of Neurala Inc. He was born in Italy and now resides in the state of Massachusetts. His Boston-based company at the forefront of artificial intelligence. We're speaking AI today. Born in Malfoy, he is a Fulbright scholar and has two PhDs in experimental psychology and cognitive neural systems. As the founding director of the Boston University Neuromorphics Lab, he's been instrumental in pioneering AI technologies and replicating the complexities of the human brain. His work has not only advanced AI but also revolutionized fields like manufacturing and space exploration. Join us today at the Immigrant Nation podcast as we delve into the journey from Italy to the US. His groundbreaking work and future of AI is mind blowing. Mr. Max, walk us through what your journey looked like from Malfoy, Italy to becoming a leading AI researcher in Boston.
Thank you, Martin, and good morning, everybody. A pleasure to be here. It has been a long journey. I started, as you mentioned, in Monfalcone, Italy, which is a small town at the very tip of the Mediterranean. So when you swim up the Mediterranean, that's the last city you meet before having to cross the Alps. And I was as a student, I was always a curious person, and I decided to dive into science. And I remember, when I did the transition to the university, I was interested in the most interesting, most powerful science available. And I came to a counterintuitive conclusion, and I decided that the science of the brain, studying the brain, was the most important science because all other sciences, all other concepts, all we know, all our knowledge comes from the brain. So I thought, well, if I know the brain, I kind of have a footing on all the other sciences. So I went into studying the brain. And back then in Italy, artificial intelligence was not a big discipline. So I started as a psychologist, but then I quickly realized that the best way to really understand how the brain works was to build it. And there was no better way to build it in my mind than to learn to program it, right? So the idea is that, if you want to understand the concept, you can look at it, or a machine, you can look at it, you can study, you can disassemble it, but if you can build it from scratch, you really know what it takes to work, right? So what are the functional parts, what do they do, how many do you need, how do you structure it? And so I started to build it kind of by myself. That was the time before internet, right? So all you can have access were books, and then the help of your guardian angel to figure it out. But I quickly realized that there was a very strong stream of researchers here in Boston, not at MIT. MIT actually embraced the wrong AI, right? So that there are different kinds of AI, and there is an AI that is based on sort of like decision trees, right? If an apple is round and it's red, then that's an apple. And that's not really the AI that works, or the AI that is in our brain, in which intelligence arises from the work of neurons connected in large networks. And so that particular stream of research was at Boston University. So I decided to come. And as you mentioned, I got a Fulbright fellowship in the middle of my PhD that I started in Italy. And so I finished my Italian PhD, but I really started the PhD here in Boston, where alongside many immigrants, right? So the majority of the students in my department were from India, from Iran, China, Australia, Germany, Italy, and you name it. So it was really the United Nations, all very different background, very different languages, very different religions, but the real common thread was the pursuit of knowledge, which to me is beyond any religion, beyond any uh, anything else that you can think of as a unifying principle in society. Is when you pursue knowledge, you're really equal. Doesn't matter where you come from, right? So there was a very strong group of people, all again, mostly immigrants, that were chasing this dream of understanding how the brain works. And that's where I did my PhD, and I met what then became the co-founders of my company. One is an American, Heather, and the other one is a Russian, Anatoly. And so back in 2004, we were studying, the brain. We were building these very complex mathematical models that describe how the brain works. And we decided that to run these models, which are extremely complex, right? Many millions of equations that you have to solve. We started using GPUs, which is the graphic processing units. That today, the most valuable company in the world is NVIDIA, which sells those devices. We started to use those devices when nobody did, and so we patented that idea. We started the company, and many years later, the company is doing well. We are expanding and riding the wave of AI. But I can tell you that when we started, nobody really uh, nobody really cared, right? And so it was a very different scenario. And now we're kind of vindicated on the choices that we did. But back then, it was considered as a pseudoscience almost. But today the story is different, as you know.
Very interesting. So I am a fan of what you just said because in the recent past, as AI is evolving, there has been a lot of scare talk, if I might call it that, of where those who are in the field of AI and developing it are concerned that it can be used for doom and gloom. And so hearing a positive calculation that you just laid down of what AI can be from your end, that gives me hope because I'm enthused of what in my head what I imagine AI can do for humanity in the future. My concern has always been that AI requires to replicate the brain of a human being. That means at least it feels like a human being, it sees like a human being, and interprets like a human being. And so for that, it requires a body, it requires a mind. What I found fascinating while researching you was you spoke of AI and robots being an idea that is behind labs and really on YouTube. And so my question is, are we closer to getting out of YouTube and into our kitchens? And if so, what and how should humans prepare to have a more intelligent gadget per se in your house that complements who you are?
You ask many interesting questions, Martin. So let me start. So interestingly, I gave two TEDx talk in my career. One was in 2015, and I think you're referring to that, where I was talking. If you were an alien watching YouTube, you think that the world is full of robots, but where are they, right? So that's exactly 10 years ago. And again, if in 2024 there are very few robots around, so we haven't fulfilled that prophecy, right? The robots are not here. But I recently gave another talk in last year, another TEDx, which I'll get to it in a moment. But let me first address. Um, at the beginning, you were talking about the replicating the human brain, etc. So to me, the study of artificial intelligence was not a technology endeavor at the beginning. It was a scientific and philosophical endeavor. And to me, the pursuit of knowledge is the real goal. And if you want to understand how knowledge originates and how the brain works, it's really knowing yourself. So going after the study of artificial intelligence is not going after money, glory, or even technological application at the beginning, but it's going after understanding humans. So as such, I think it's an endeavor that is really important, let alone the repercussion that you might have in, for instance, understanding diseases, right? So if you know how the brain works, maybe you can cure some of the diseases that plague many, many millions of people. Um, but I think that the philosophical endeavor is very important. It turns out that the study of the brain also has a very strong technological repercussion. And when I started Neurala with my colleague Anatoly and Heather, we thought that the main goal of artificial intelligence was actually to relieve humans. And relief from what? Relief from operating machines. And in a sense, that to me is almost like an enslaving activity, right? So you have a machine, you have many machines around the world today that require humans to operate them. And to me, that's degrading for a human, right? So why shouldn't the machine operate itself? Why shouldn't, for instance, a robot on Mars require the step-by-step guidance from a human? Why would an industrial machine require the oversight from a human? Why shouldn't this machine have their own brain, operate independently, and then augment the work of humans? So that was really the impetus on us to field AI that could then empower machine to think by themselves. It's not really to help the machines to kill humans or do anything bad, right? And so that goes back to the crux of the matter, that AI is a technology, nothing more, nothing less, like going back to 2001 Odyssey, the club that the monkey was using to at the beginning of the movie, right? That can be a tool, or it can be something you hurt people, and that has been the same concept from the beginning of time, and it would be always the same, which is that technology can be used for good or for evil, right? And so that basically brings the main point that is really in the hands of humans on how AI gets used. And if you look at the track record of humans throughout the history, that is not fun, right? So there has been definitely many, many instances in which the ethics and morality of human is at the root cause of what's bad with humanity. It's not AI per se. And so it kind of falls back that the topic is a topic of human ethics rather than AI ethics, and that's where the problem lies, right? So if we are in an ethical species, then our destiny is definitely set, and we're doomed. But it's not AI's fault. It's definitely the fault of humans.
Very interesting. Very interesting. So, science has proved that the human body is capable of producing at least a certain amount of power from the body. And we're talking of somewhere about 3.5 trillion volts of electricity. And so, in the ability to be able to produce that amount of energy from a human body, what capacity of production in terms of intelligence and brain activity would we perceive that a robot that is encased with AI would be producing or required to source?
So I think that the big question here is how much power the robot doesn't not generates but
Mhm.
requires to operate, right? If I understand correctly. So, and that's where the currently AI hardware is still lagging behind, right? And we talked about GPUs, etc. So the brain is really a fantastic machine. If you're thinking, I just ate some cookies and drank a coffee, and
Yeah.
that's all I need to operate my brain for many, many hours. And so my brain, a regimen might burn as many watts as a light bulb. And in order to use and train AI, you use way more power than that. in today's hardware. So the current power consumption of AI is a big limiting factor to its widespread deployment. In particular, as you're thinking about embodied scenarios like robots, drones, or you know. You mentioned, robot in the house. You have to reach a power consumption that is compatible with a consumer device that you can charge and it can operate for the whole day. So we are not there yet. And if you remember, the talk I gave in 2014 was, to unlock AI, you need the brain, the body, and the mind, right? So the mind is the software, the body is the robot, and then the brain is the hardware that runs the AI. And despite a lot of money is coming into AI, and lots of very smart people are trying to design hardware that is better, it will take a few years until the power of the consumption of the devices that are used to run AI gets more and more similar to the power consumption that the brain achieves. But we shouldn't underestimate how fantastic biological brains are. Again, I consume some sugars that I find around, and then I can think. So it's a machine. It's a machine that is really difficult to compare with anything man-made
That
today.
is true and very interesting. So, you have a background in psychology. How does that influence your work in artificial intelligence today?
Yeah, I mean, it's first of all, you can get into artificial intelligence from many different paths. And I remember when I joined Boston University, we had engineers, physicians, physicists, psychologists, computer scientists, and the like, right? So each one of these people comes from a different background. So psychology per se is very important because if you're trying to replicate the brain has its manifestation in a behavior, right? So if you understand the behavior, if you understand psychology in terms of what are the tasks that the brain is solving, or have a background in understanding the psyche and how the psyche works, and the train of thoughts, how is that structured, you have a very different approach to the study of the brain that you would otherwise have. In particular, the behavioral aspect, right? Because the brain is something that enables humans to solve behavioral problems, survivals, and interaction with this, conspecifics, and success in finding a mate, finding food, and et cetera, et cetera. So when you understand the behavior, then you're able to put the brain in the right context. So to me, it was really important, although it's a condition that is necessary but not sufficient. To build AI, you need understanding of mathematics, you need understanding of biology, you need understanding of computer science, and the ability to handle complex algorithms as well.
Very interesting. So, let's talk about what you're doing now. You were inspired to co-found Neurala, and what is the company's primary mission? What is your proudest moment thus far?
Yeah, so the company started early. As I mentioned, we wrote some patent in 2006. We were still
Mhm.
students at that point, so we kept the company at the university until 2013. So about 10 years ago, we took the company out, and back then the landscape was very different, right? So AI was not mainstream. We wanted to apply AI in robotics. So at that point, we had a contract with NASA where we were designing artificial brains for robots to enable robots to explore their environment autonomously. And there were not many customers from us, right? And the number of robots deployed in the field was very small. And so we had to struggle and find the right market for us, which, at the beginning we went into drones, and then slowly migrated through different applications until we landed on cell phones. And back then, the biggest application, sorry, the biggest application we had was in about 60 million phones. We were the AI inside a very large brand, the top three smartphone brand. And in 2017, we designed AI for these phones to basically be able to take pictures and transform the picture with AI into a beautiful picture that is taken by a professional photographer. That was our biggest deployment, but we had to abandon the customer because of tension between United States and China in terms of trade war. So that was, we were an innocent bystander of a trade war between two very large countries. So we kind of changed our focus, and we still worked on cameras, so building AI that gives cameras the ability to understand what they're seeing. But we converged on using cameras for manufacturing use. And so the use case there was manufacturers build products and they have to check their quality, and there are not enough eyes to look at the product. You cannot put those eyes in places where the human doesn't fit, for instance, inside the machine that is building an object. And not many people want to work in manufacturing, right? So very few friends of mine tell me, oh, my dream job is to go work in a factory. Nobody wants to work in a factory, right? They all want to be lawyers and the physicians and the actors, right? So very few want to spend their time inside the production line. And so we found that to be a very compelling application for AI because it solves a problem where humans don't want to be, where they shouldn't be. They should get, a human should be managing a large system of autonomous devices like cameras or robots or to produce the goods that we need, rather than have many thousands of people to do very repetitive jobs. So we thought that application of AI was good for humans, good for humanity, and so we went into it. And unfortunately, COVID started when we launched the product, and so all the factories were closed, and it took us a long time to get the feedback on the product, to get the first customer. But today we are doing very well, but it wasn't easy at the beginning. I can tell you that there were moments in which we thought, can we make it, right? Because we were late, money was running short, and you couldn't see an end at a light at the end of the tunnel.
Very interesting. So Moneta is a really interesting project for you. In full, it's modular neural exploring travel agent. Can you explain the project and how significant it is in today's world?
Yeah, so you went back in our past. So Moneta, which is an acronym that my co-founder is Anatoly he's very fond of creating acronym out of this. But Moneta is also very fittingly is a Roman goddess, and it's Moneta is also the common word for coin in Italian. And so it's also the goddess of memory for the Roman mythology. So somehow Moneta, the counting of money, and the ability to memorize things were all linked together, right? So you owe me $20. I remember that, right? Sort of that was the goddess of memory. Uh, but so back then we were working with DARPA, and DARPA is a military agency in the United States that funds advanced research projects. And it has been a very important agency for United States for many years to keep the technological advantage of the United States. But the majority of the repercussion, thankfully, are commercial, right? So if you have a phone today, or if you have internet today, or if you have a phone with GPS that tells you where you are, or if you can browse the internet, those are all outgrowth of project that DARPA funded, right? So ARPANET was the precursor of internet, which was funded by DARPA, and I can go on and on and on. And one of the projects that they founded was neuromorphic brains, so the ability to basically design a brain with special hardware that you can fit in sort of a shoebox and consume the same amount of power of a microwave oven. And so back in 2009, this was an impossible task. In fact, we didn't succeed fully, but years later, that those initial results spawn an industry. And today, if you have a cell phone, if you have a major brand, like a top three brand, you have inside your cell phone, you have the CPU, which is the old processor that always be there. Has been there forever and will always probably be there. You have a GPU, which is the graphic processing unit that renders the screen, right? So when you watch YouTube, the GPU starts to crunch the numbers so you can see all the pixel in the screen showing the video of the snowboarder or whatever you're watching. But today there is also an NPU in the phone, and NPU stands for Neural Processing Unit, which is a little chip that is inspired by the brain functioning, and it kind of traces his roots back to this DARPA project that helped to design or boosted the ecosystem of designing these little chips that consume little power that can do this specialized AI computation. And AI computes things in a different way than the CPU and the GPU do. So it requires a slightly different kind of a processor. And back then, DARPA asked us design as a brain that we run on this processor, and that's how we got to Moneta. So Moneta is a small brain that resemble, if you will, a brain of a rat rather than a human. But if you've ever seen a rat or a mouse, they're very smart animals. They can do amazing things. They can remember a ton of things. They can find their path around. And when you're trying to design a robot that does that, you understand how fantastic the intelligence of any organism is, because
Yes.
it's very hard to do, right? You look at it and say, oh, that's easy, but it's not easy. If you're trying to program it, it's a nightmare, right? Because to design a system that is really robust, can do it for a lifetime, it's really hard. And so that's what we did. We did a small rat brain and then, that was the precursor of then what we did for NASA, because if you can design a little brain of a rat, then you have a robot brain, right? And so the robot, what does the robot do? Roams around like a rat, looks for things, and then goes back to its base and remembers
Yeah.
where things are and recognizes those things. And so that's how it started. And if I have to look back, that was really a seminal moment for us, a big project that taught us how to build brains, if you will.
So, and I hate to put this number because in the world of robotics and AI, so much is changing and so very rapidly. But from where you are looking at the world and the world of technology, you see how AI is developing and evolving. Where do you see humanity and AI, particularly in the next decade?
So I recently gave a TEDx talk last year, this summer, which addresses kind of these questions. And the the question is that AI is going to develop very fast, and robotics is developing also very fast. And the reason is that now there is no question on whether the AI, whether AI or robotics are useful. That has been answered, right? So you're probably using either directly or indirectly today 100 times ChatGPT or ChatGPT like devices, right? So when you talk to your phone, when you type a question, if you're searching something on the web, today the answer to is AI useful is yes. So since the answer is yes, a lot of money and a lot of people are diving into the field, which basically means that it's accelerating the progress, right? So the rate of acceleration would be much faster than it has been in the past 10 years. So we will advance in a year more than we have advanced in 10
Mhm.
years in the past, just because there is more money, more people, more attention, and more resources. So what would that bring humanity? And there would be definitely substantial changes to our work environment, right? So there would be a lot of a great chunk of the tasks that require humans to do will be done by AI, which, as I explained in the TEDx talk, is creating a very unsafe environment for humans in terms of their identity, right? So people are asking, what am I, right? If I thought humans were the pinnacle of evolution because we could think, right? Therefore, if we can think, animals can think, we can do whatever we want, right? We are the top. And that was our forma mentis, that was kind of our belief. That also gave us the arrogance to do what the hell we want with the environment, with the animals, and
Yes.
with the planet. And now, all of a sudden, is the holy shit moment, right? Which is, wait, I'm not the only one to think. Moreover, I will probably not be the smartest soon. So it's an existential threat to our own identity, right? But at a certain point, what do you do with this information, right? So the first reasoning is well, we are not unique, and perhaps there is nothing really magic about the way about our brains or the way we are thinking. That's really not the special aspect of what makes us human. Why? Because a piece of hardware and software can do the same or better. So that's the first realization, right? And so if you start to embrace this reality, then the next question is, are we really different from machines, right? And I mentioned in this talk that AI has created this sort of magic mirror in front of us, where we have the ability to look at ourselves in this mirror and say, well, are we and machine the same thing? And you can have two answers: yes
No.
or no. And so if the answer is yes, then who cares, right? At a certain point, if we are machines and we end up wiping ourselves off the planet, who cares?
Right.
We are just machines. But then if we are not machine, then the question is a very deep and philosophical one, which is, well, what is the difference, right? If you can do humans minus machines, and the answer is something else, there is something that makes us different, then what is that something? What is that difference, right? And so to me, I thought about this a lot, of course, and I came to the counterintuitive conclusion that the advancement of AI will create one of two very different scenarios. One is a bad scenario where, you know, who cares? We get destroyed and whatever,
Where we
right?
become slaves to
Or
machines.
or we become
Yeah.
slaves to machines, or we rediscover spirituality. And we kind of go back to the drawing board. And if you are, no matter what religion you're from, if you go back to the roots of your religion, whether it's a Christian, Muslim, Jewish, Kabbalic, or you go into the Western, Eastern religions, each one of these religions talks about the fact that we are neither matter nor thought, right? So they're very explicit in saying that your thinking is not what makes you divine, right? So they talk about something else. And so perhaps in the next 10 years, we'll rediscover what spirituality is. So there will be surely a minority of us, I hope a majority, who will look at this AI advancement and say, okay, well, we are not our thought. We are not, there is nothing special about the biology. We are surely not superior to cats, dogs, because they have the same stuff. You look at their brain, you don't look at their body, they're very similar. So what does it make us really unique? What does it make us really divine? And so a few people will explore that. And so perhaps there will be a resurgence of spirituality that will parallel sort of a very high technology that humanity hasn't seen since its
So,
inception.
talking about human resurgence and a connection with our spirituality, that's for me, humans are the pinnacle of evolution. I mean, if you ask me, we are at the top of the food chain in terms of productivity, creativity, and on and on and on. How close are we to building autonomous robots to a point where they are the pinnacle of the human creativity and ingenuity? Because to me, that would be the scary part.
Yeah, so I don't see it as scary as you do, and the
Okay.
reason is the reason is the following, right? So I think of the brain as made of
Hmm.
Lego, right? And you have these Legos, and you look at the brain of a cat, and it's made of Legos. Maybe different kind of combination of these Legos. Maybe there are a few less Legos, but it's still the same thing. You look at humans has the same Legos of the cat, but arranged differently and maybe a few more. And so at a certain point, we will have a big Lego that has 5 times the amount of Legos that humans have. It can cheat, right? Because you can have a server that consumes that is hooked to a nuclear power plant, whereas a human, you know, can you can consume 2-3 thousand calories per day, but you don't have a nuclear power plant, so there are
Yes.
constraints to humans. The machines don't have to obey. So the scenario where you can build a super intelligence, to me, is just a matter of how big of a Lego castle you can build with a lot of resources, right? And so it's definitely possible. And but what would that tell you? What would that tell you? Why would you feel less important or less intelligent? Well, you see, that has just the same Legos as you have, but it turns out that somebody has put a lot of money and time and built a bigger Lego. And by the way, I have a pet at home that has almost the same amount of Legos that I have. And so it kind of would put things into perspective. And the fact that we are the pinnacle of evolution is very
Yes.
relative, right? Maybe in the universe there is somebody with brains that's 10 times bigger than we have. So it gives us a little bit of more of the ability to pause and understand what is our role in the universe. And just because today we are superior to everything in terms of intelligence, doesn't mean that that will be forever, and doesn't mean that because of that we should be feeling that we are entitled to do whatever we want with whatever we see.
So
Because one day there can be a bigger Lego that can
that
do the
is
same
true.
to us.
That is true. We've seen that with forms of government, and we've seen that with multiple forms of society. Uh, but Professor Maximilian, we're speaking to about 50 million immigrants across the globe that are constantly moving, constantly changing because of a myriad of reasons. It could be they're moving because of war, it could be they're moving because of economic purposes, healthcare, and on and on and on. As immigrants are looking to move from their motherland or from one place to another, what is their role in the future in terms of integrating smart devices, AI, into their lives, and also preparing for what the world is going to look like, especially when it comes to education and education for their children?
So I've been an immigrant all my life, so I wouldn't know any different. And even when I was in Italy, my family emigrated from the south, and I was
Mhm.
born in the north. And so there has always been an aspect of me of I'm the outsider, right? I go home, there is a dialect, there is a microcosm, but then when I go out, there is a different one, and then I immigrated and returned to the United States. So I don't know any other scenario where
Yes,
I'm not an
yes.
immigrant, right? And so, um, to me, it gives me perspective, and I believe that the immigrants are fantastic to have, and we have many in our company. People work really hard, and that's the beauty of being an immigrant, right? So sometimes you feel like, oh, I have to work really hard, but how boring the world would be if you wouldn't be, right? If everything would be given to you, you wouldn't have to struggle for it, and whenever you obtain something after a struggle,
Yeah,
it
you
tastes
place more
better,
value to
right?
it.
And it places more value to it. So I would say that if you're an immigrant, I would consider it as a gift to yourself. Moreover, since things are not handed to you for free, you become very resilient, you become very strong, you become an extremely motivated individual. And when you surpass challenges is really when you grow as a person. So I would tell the immigrants, how lucky are you, right? I know it feels sometimes sad that you have to leave your country, and I go back to Italy many
Mhm.
times per year. But I think that whoever becomes an immigrant is a special person, because it decides that he's going to take the challenge. It just is not content to get, to stay status quo, but is willing to take the challenge, and so that builds very strong and resilient people. So the role of this immigrant in shaping AI might be very substantial because it gives you come from a perspective where you're not at the top of the food chain. If you can reuse one of the things you said before, right? You definitely, when you're an immigrant, you don't start at the top, you start at the very bottom, very times. And so it gives you a perspective. If you start at the bottom, when you are eventually at the top, because many immigrants succeed and get to the top, to be able to understand what does it mean to be at the bottom, right? And I think that people who are immigrants maybe have this perspective more than others. They understand what does it mean to start from a disadvantaged position, and so perhaps they can bring some more ethics into the business of AI that might be really needed in the next few
Very interesting.
years.
So, based on your experience and opinion, what are the most exciting recent advancements in AI and deep learning that are happening that we need to be aware of?
So in the past few years, we have seen the kind of the march of AI conquering more and more aspect of the human condition, right? So just 10 years ago, uh, all that AI could do was to emulate a little piece of the brain that stands here at the back of our skull, which is the visual cortex, right? So, if you remember, the few things that AI could do was recognize road signals, maybe interpret medical images, tell if you're looking at a cat or a dog. But then it started to capture more and more things that the human brain does. One of the things that it does is attention, right? So we don't learn everything from all over our world, but we tend to focus our attention to things that are important to us. And other things that the brain has been able to, that the AI has been able to capture from the brain is the ability to learn in real time. So, for instance, um, we are having this podcast, right? And if I ask you, where was I born? If I ask one of your viewers, where was I born? Then they might say, oh, this guy's from Italy. So this is basically the AI at work emulating aspects of the brain, because as I'm talking to you, you're actually learning at the same time. And so this ability to learn has been captured, right? And so in general, what we are seeing in AI is that more and more aspect of the human brain, more of these Legos, if you will, are captured and then created in software. And so it's a very, perhaps it's taking many, many years, but it shows that we are marching towards the capturing the majority of the elements that make up the human brain so that we can build this artificial brain in an efficient way.
Very interesting. So, part of what we do here at the Immigrant Nation podcast is we're looking to help immigrants in several ways. One of them is educate them so that they are aware of how the world is changing and how they can take opportunities. The second one is taking opportunities, right? From your perspective, what are some of the areas that, as an immigrant looking on how we can invest our resources and resourcefulness into the future, where should we put our money into, where should we take our bets into, what kind of education are we looking to educate our youth so that they can continue to be productive as immigrants in fields that are completely and utterly revolutionary?
And I'm surely going to sound like a broken disc, but artificial intelligence to me is a fantastic opportunity, and the reason is the following, right? So once upon a time, for instance, education was available only to the wealthy in
Yes,
certain locations, right?
absolutely.
And today, you know, at the beginning, the democratization came in the form of open online courses, right? Which enables people from all over the world to access the best education. But now, with the AI at your fingertips, you can basically have in your cell phone the ability to capture all the knowledge that, billions of dollars of training have put into an AI system. So this really means that the ability for humans to learn is more limited by their ability to suffer and go through the pain of learning rather than their money. And so this means that anybody on the planet, whether it's in a poor country or in the richest country, can have access to basically the same information, the same amount of tutoring, right? But it's really the amount of effort that the person can undertake that makes it's the limiting factor. And so that will basically mean that if there is somebody in a poor country that can learn more, that is more motivated to learn, there is no reason why that person shouldn't reach to a higher level of education of somebody who is born in California and goes to Stanford, for
Yes,
instance.
yes.
So to me, that's a great opportunity.
If you're speaking to an audience of young immigrants, and I'm sure you do because you're in the circles of education, most of them end up in the field of technology, medicine, and innovation. But if you are speaking to young immigrants, what would you focus their attention on today?
That you don't necessarily have to move out of your country to be
That's
successful,
fascinating. That's
right?
fascinating.
Yeah. So when I was back in Italy, the education was more traditional, right? You have to go to a place, sit down, and get to know your teacher and go to classes, etc. So today is a very different world where much of it is virtual and much of the information is widespread and can be accessed anywhere. So the physical, the need to relocate is less acute than it was before. And so perhaps you can be almost a virtual immigrant in the sense that you can access information from all over the world, but without the need of necessarily relocating physically, or perhaps not as badly as before.
Can you speak to the impact of your work? What are some of the areas that you're finding yourself excited about, the opportunities that are opening up as we really get to understand deep learning and really getting to put the three together, the brain, the mind, and the body together?
So I'm really interested in the ability to amplify the work of humans, right? So and this is really me looking at the stars, right? So if you're looking at the human as a species, how can we evolve beyond our current capabilities? And one of the reasons why I went into this space working with NASA was, how can robotics and AI help us to understand the universe? And that today we're talking about sending people to the moon and to Mars, but really what we should be doing is sending millions of robots to explore the solar system and tell us what's out there, how can we get there, what's beyond our planet. And in on Earth, we can use this technology to expand our capabilities beyond what's currently possible on a physical level. So to me, that's extremely exciting.
Thank you for listening to the Immigrant Nation podcast. Make sure to follow us, share our episode, and join us next time as we continue to highlight the voices of wonderful immigrants like Massimiliano Versace. Bye bye.